In the year 2421, humanity had ventured far beyond the confines of Earth, establishing colonies on distant planets and forging alliances with various alien species. Amidst this interstellar landscape, a young human student named Jack had embarked on an exchange program at the prestigious Intergalactic Academy on the planet Coraxon III. Jack was unlike his peers, who mostly came from affluent families. He had earned his place at the academy through scholarships and hard work. His curiosity about alien cultures and technologies drove him to excel in his studies, but it also made him somewhat of an outsider. One day, while exploring the outskirts of the capital city, Jack stumbled upon a startling scene. In a dimly lit alley, he found a young alien girl with distinctive features unlike any he had encountered before. Her skin shimmered with a subtle iridescence, reflecting the faint light in hues of blue and green. Her eyes, large and expressive, were filled with a mix of fear and defiance. Despite her regal demeanor, she was clad in tattered clothes, and her slender frame suggested she had been without food for days. Sensing her distress, Jack approached cautiously. "Hey, are you okay? Do you need help?" he asked, extending his hand. The girl recoiled initially. Then, as if weighing her options, she slowly accepted his offer. "I am in need of assistance," she admitted in a voice that carried a melodic quality, yet hinted at untold sorrow. Jack learned her name was Alara, and she was indeed a princess, but from a world called Vaynor, a planet torn apart by civil war and political strife. Her own people had abandoned her, fearing she was an ill omen, as her birth had coincided with a devastating natural disaster. With nowhere to go and no one to turn to, Alara had hidden herself away on Coraxon III, hoping to evade those who might still seek her out for their own political gains. Jack, moved by her plight, decided to take her under his wing. "I can't just leave you here. Come with me. I'll figure something out," he insisted, not fully comprehending the gravity of the situation he was about to entangle himself in. Back at the academy, Jack introduced Alara as his guest, crafting a story that she was a transfer student in need of temporary accommodations. The faculty, ever eager to support intergalactic relations, agreed to host her until her transfer could be finalized. As days turned into weeks, Jack and Alara grew close. She shared with him the rich history of Vaynor, her culture, and the burdens of her royal heritage. In turn, Jack taught her about Earth, its diverse cultures, and his own dreams of making the universe a better place. Unknown to both, their growing bond was being monitored. Forces both on Vaynor and within the Galactic Council had taken an interest in the abandoned princess and the unassuming human who had come to her aid. Jack's simple act of kindness had set them on a path that would alter not just their own lives, but potentially the political landscape of the galaxy itself. As the semester progressed, danger loomed closer, though it was masked by the routine of academic life and new friendships. But Jack and Alara were about to be thrust into the center of an interstellar intrigue that would test their courage and their hearts. Their journey was just beginning, and neither the universe nor they were ready for the revelations and challenges that lay ahead. As the semester drew to a close, Jack found himself increasingly concerned about Alara's safety. Despite their efforts to keep her identity a secret, whispers and rumors began to circulate among the students and faculty. The intrigue surrounding the mysterious new student could not be contained indefinitely. One evening, as Jack and Alara walked through the academy's sprawling botanical gardens, a place where she had found solace among the exotic flora reminiscent of her home planet, they were suddenly approached by a group of individuals. The leader, a tall, imposing figure with skin that glinted like polished metal, addressed Alara directly. "Princess Alara of Vaynor, we are agents of the Galactic Council. You must come with us immediately," he declared, his voice devoid of emotion. Alara's reaction was swift and composed. "I am under the protection of this institution. Any grievances against me must be taken up with the Academy's administration." Jack stepped forward, placing himself between Alara and the agents. "She's not going anywhere unless she agrees to it. What's this about anyway?" The lead agent paused, assessing Jack's determination. "This is a matter of galactic security. The princess is a central figure in a dispute that threatens peace across multiple systems. Her presence here has not gone unnoticed, and there are those who would seek to use her for their own ends. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Jack felt a surge of protectiveness. We'll need to discuss this with the Academy heads. She has rights, and you can't just... Before he could finish, the atmosphere was disrupted by a sudden blast of energy. A second group had appeared, cloaked until that moment, their intentions clear as they began firing upon the agents. Chaos ensued as the garden became a battlefield. Jack grabbed Alara's hand and they ran, dodging blasts and weaving through the vegetation. Alara, despite her royal upbringing, moved with surprising agility, her earlier life of privilege belied by her adeptness in this moment of crisis. They managed to escape into the city, blending into the crowd as sirens wailed and security forces mobilized. Jack led Alara to a safe house he had set up, a nondescript apartment in the lower levels of the city, a precaution he had prepared for a situation he hoped would never occur. As they caught their breath, Alara turned to Jack, her eyes reflecting a tumult of emotions. "I never wanted this for you. You're in danger because of me." Jack shook his head. "We're in this together now. Whatever comes, we'll face it as a team. We need a plan." The realization dawned on them that returning to the Academy was no longer an option. They would have to navigate the complex web of galactic politics and hidden agendas. Jack accessed his contacts to gather information, while Alara reached out to her few loyal retainers back on Vaynor, seeking insight and aid. They learned that factions within the Vaynor royal court were indeed manipulating her presence as a tool to leverage power. Moreover, the Galactic Council's interest in her was not merely for security purposes, but tied to a controversial treaty that her return could either solidify or destroy. As they pieced together the information, a strategy began to form. They would need allies, and they would need to expose the conspiracies that sought to exploit Alara for their own gains. It was a daunting task, but with each other's support, a spark of hope ignited between them, promising not just survival, but a chance to reshape the galaxy's future. In the underbelly of the city, amidst the labyrinth of its oldest quarters, Jack and Alara sought refuge with an old contact of Jack's, a cyberneticist known for her revolutionary work in stealth technology. Her lab was hidden beneath a nondescript salvage yard, a fortress of technology and secrets. Dr. Mira Lan, with her intricate web of glowing neural implants, greeted them with a cautious hospitality. "Jack, bringing a royal runaway into my lab? You must be desperate," she commented, her eyes flickering with light as she scanned Alara. "We need your help, Mira. There are factions after her, and we need to stay hidden," Jack explained, laying out their predicament. Mira paced around her lab, hands clasped behind her back. "I might have something for you. An experimental cloaking device. It's not perfect, tends to drain power like a starving beast, but it could give you the anonymity you need." With Mira's aid, they rigged up a portable version of the cloaking device for Alara, adapting it to her unique biosignature. It would render her invisible to most surveillance systems, a shadow among the galaxy's countless inhabitants. As the device hummed to life, wrapping Alara in a shroud of light before she faded from view, Jack couldn't help but feel they were crossing into new realms of danger and deceit. Equipped with their new technology, they plotted their next move. Information was their greatest weapon, and Alara's royal contacts provided the first piece of the puzzle. There was to be a clandestine meeting between several high-ranking officials of the Galactic Council and representatives from a shadowy syndicate known for its influence over interstellar mining operations. If they could infiltrate this meeting, they might uncover enough evidence to expose the conspiracy against Alara. Navigating the corridors of power required more than invisibility. It required cunning and precision. Jack and Alara, with Mira's reluctant blessing, made their way to the spaceport where the meeting was scheduled. Disguised as workers, they blended in with the crowd, the cloaking device hiding Alara's royal bearing. Inside the spaceport, the air was thick with tension. Security drones hovered at every corner, their sensors sweeping the throngs of beings from countless planets. Jack's heart raced as they approached the private docks where the meeting was to take place. Using a stolen access code, they slipped into the meeting room, a stark, dimly lit chamber overlooking the docking bays. Hidden in the shadows, Ilara deactivated the cloaking device, conserving its power. They watched as the officials gathered, unaware of the royal witness to their dealings. The conversation was guarded at first, but as the officials felt more secure, their true intentions surfaced. They discussed the manipulation of trade routes and the destabilization of sectors that opposed the treaty, revealing their plan to use Ilara as a puppet to enforce their will on her home planet. Recording every word, Jack and Ilara knew this evidence could tilt the scales in their favor. But just as they prepared to leave, a flicker of malfunction caused Ilara to reappear momentarily. It was enough to alert one of the security drones. Alerts blared, and the room was suddenly swarming with guards. Jack and Ilara fled, dodging stun blasts and barricading themselves in a maintenance corridor. The evidence they had gathered was crucial, but now they needed to escape and broadcast it to the right channels. With the station on high alert, their escape seemed impossible until Jack remembered an old smuggling route Mira had mentioned. If they could reach it, they could stow away on a freighter leaving the system. Their hearts pounding, they raced through the bowels of the spaceport, every turn and doorway fraught with danger, until they found the hidden passage. As they slipped into the cramped space aboard the freighter, bound for an unknown destination, Jack and Ilara held onto the hope that their next stop would bring them allies, or at least a brief respite to plan their next move in the galactic game of shadows they were now central players in. As the freighter rumbled through the vacuum of space, Jack and Ilara hid in the cargo bay, nestled among crates of synthetic ore. The confined space was suffocating, and the constant hum of the engine was a relentless reminder of their precarious situation. Despite the discomfort, the urgency of their mission fueled their resilience. "We need to decide our next move," Jack whispered, his voice barely audible over the drone of the engines. "Once we dock, we'll have to find a way to get this information to the right people." Ilara nodded, her face set in determination. "We need an ally who has access to the galactic network, someone who can broadcast what we've found to every corner of the known galaxies." Their discussion was interrupted by a sudden lurch of the freighter, signaling their arrival at the docking station of Tetra 5, a bustling trade hub known for its less-than-scrupulous dealings and diverse population. It was the perfect place to disappear, or find the right kind of help. Stealthily, they made their way off the freighter, blending into the crowd of traders, pirates, and other transients that frequented the hub. The air was thick with the dialects of 100 worlds, the rich smells of exotic foods, and the less savory odor of decay that seemed inherent to such places. Their first stop was an old bar known to Jack from his academy days, a dimly lit den called the Star's End. It was frequented by hackers, smugglers, and those who thrived on the edges of legality. Here Jack approached an old contact, a hacker known as Silas, who had the skills and the lack of scruples necessary to aid in their cause. Silas, a gaunt figure with cybernetic eyes that flickered with passing data streams, listened intently as Jack outlined their needs. "You want to hit the airwaves with this? It's high-stakes stuff, kid, but it's just the kind of challenge I like. Let's see the data." Ilara handed over the recording device, and Silas plugged it into his portable console, his fingers dancing across the holographic keys. After several tense moments, he nodded. "It's authentic. I can broadcast this across the network, but the signal will be traced back here in minutes. You'll start a firestorm." "We'll take that risk," Ilara said, her voice steady. "It's the only way to ensure my planet's freedom and possibly peace in the galaxy." With a shrug, Silas set to work. Within minutes, the data was streaming across the galactic network, exposing the conspiracy in stark, undeniable light. Alerts sounded, screens across the hub flickered with the breaking news, and the patrons of the Star's End watched as the galaxy changed before their eyes. But the broadcast had indeed traced back to their location. Before they could celebrate their success, Jack and Ilara found themselves surrounded by security forces, alerted by Silas's hacking. The bar erupted into chaos as other patrons, sensing the danger or excited by the disruption, began a raucous brawl. Seizing the moment, Jack, Ilara, and Silas ducked behind the bar, using the confusion as cover. "We need an exit," Jack yelled over the noise. "Follow me," Silas shouted, leading them through a secret passage hidden behind a row of synthetic kegs. They emerged in an alleyway, sprinting away from the chaos, their hearts pounding not just from the run, but from the realization that they had set significant change in motion. They needed a safe place to regroup and plan their next actions. The hideout was a small, cramped apartment located in one of the older residential sectors of Tetra 5, where the architecture had long succumbed to the ravages of time and neglect. The walls were lined with patchwork repairs of different materials, and the windows were sealed with opaque film to block out the intrusive gaze of drones and prying eyes. Here, Jack, Ilara, and Silas found a temporary sanctuary, a place to catch their breath and contemplate their next steps. As the initial adrenaline of their escape waned, the gravity of their actions began to settle in. The galaxy was undoubtedly in upheaval. The exposed secrets sparked protests on several planets, ignited debates within the Galactic Council, and destabilized markets that thrived on the predictability of controlled chaos. Silas, who had been monitoring the repercussions of their broadcast, turned from his screens, his cybernetic eyes flickering with a cascade of data. "The whole galaxy's in an uproar. Seems you two have become quite the celebrities," he said, a wry smile playing on his lips. Ilara paced the room, her mind racing with the implications. "We've started something that can't be undone. Now, more than ever, we need to ensure the right leaders are in place to guide the transition. We can't let those corrupt factions regroup and seize control again." Jack nodded in agreement. "We need to go to Vayner. It's time to confront the royal court and claim your right. Only with legitimate authority can you implement the changes necessary to heal your planet and influence the broader galaxy." Preparing for their journey to Vayner was no small feat. They needed a ship capable of evading detection and enough supplies to get them there without needing to dock at any major ports. Silas had connections, but even those were risky to utilize given the current climate. "I know a guy, an old smuggler who owes me a favor," Silas said, tapping into his network. "He's got a ship that doesn't exist on any official logs, and it's fast. With a bit of luck, he'll get you to Vayner before anyone realizes you're gone." The arrangement was made, and within hours, they were en route to the spaceport's more disreputable sectors to meet the smuggler. The ship was indeed unremarkable on the outside, blending in with the countless other freighters and shuttles that cluttered the docking bays. But inside, it was equipped with state-of-the-art stealth technology and life support systems. The smuggler, a grizzled veteran of the galactic trade routes named Harkin, met them with a skeptical look. "Silas tells me you're stirring up the cosmos. I don't usually get involved in politics, but I suppose there's a first time for everything." As they set course for Vayner, Jack and Ilara prepared themselves for the challenges ahead. They reviewed the data and the recordings, planning their approach to the royal court and anticipating the resistance they would face. Upon entering Vayner's orbit, they cloaked the ship and observed the planet. The royal palace was heavily guarded, more so now than ever before, as the ruling factions had tightened security in response to the galactic unrest. "We need to get inside and gather support before we reveal ourselves," Ilara said, her resolve firm. "There are still those in the court who remain loyal to my family and the true principles of our governance." The plan was set. They would land in a remote area of the planet, using the rugged terrain to mask their arrival. From there, they would make their way to the palace through a series of old smuggling routes that Ilara remembered from her childhood. The descent was tense, but Harkin's skill at the helm and the ship's advanced cloaking tech. Navigating the veiled pathways through Vayner's dense, whispering forests, Jack, Ilara, and their growing band of loyalists approached the outskirts of the royal palace under the cloak of night. The ancient structures rose against the skyline, their towering spires silhouetted against the moon's faint glow. The palace, once a beacon of prosperity and hope, now stood as a fortress, its beauty marred by the palpable tension that clung to its walls. Ilara, determined yet solemn, briefed her small cohort of rebels on the final approach. "The palace's defenses are fortified since the unrest began. We'll need to use the old service tunnels that lead directly into the lower chambers. From there, we can secure access to the central hall." Jack, armed and vigilant, watched her with a mix of admiration and concern. The risk was monumental, but the need for action was undeniable. The group, a mix of former palace guards and disillusioned nobles, nodded in agreement, their faces set with the resolve that came from too many years under oppressive rule. Silently, they made their way to the tunnel entrance, hidden beneath the tangled roots of a massive core tree. The entrance was barely noticeable, camouflaged by natural growth and years of neglect. As they descended into the dimly lit passages, the air grew cool and damp, the echo of their steps a constant reminder of the perilous journey ahead. Inside the palace, the atmosphere was charged with a quiet tension. Guards patrolled the corridors, their eyes wary and their movements sharp. Unaware of the intruders beneath their feet, they continued their routines, guarding a regime whose foundations were about to be challenged. Emerging from the tunnels, Alara led the group through the lower levels, moving with the familiarity of someone who had once called this place home. They avoided main corridors, instead weaving through lesser-known passages and service doors, each step bringing them closer to the heart of power. In the central hall, the ruling council, a group of high-ranking officials and nobility who had supported the oppressive policies for their own gain, were gathered. They were discussing the increased unrest and how to quell the dissent with even harsher measures. Their voices, filled with authority and disdain, echoed off the grand walls adorned with tapestries depicting Vayner's storied past. With a signal from Alara, the group sprang into action, securing the doors and confronting the stunned council. Alara stepped forward, her presence commanding the room. "I am Princess Alara of Vaynor, rightful heir to the throne, and I will no longer allow this council to drive our planet to ruin," she declared, her voice resonating with a power that silenced the room. "We have evidence of your corruption, manipulations, and greed that have endangered not just Vaynor but the stability of the galaxy. This ends now." The council members, caught off guard and outnumbered, reacted with a mixture of outrage and fear. Accusations and denials filled the air, but the presence of the rebels and the undeniable evidence of their misdeeds broadcast for all to see quelled any immediate resistance. Jack stood by Alara, his support unwavering as the palace guards, now recognizing the tide was turning, stood down or joined the princess's cause. The moment of victory was palpable, but both knew the real work was just beginning. With the council subdued and her position secured, Alara addressed her people through the palace's communication system, her message broadcasting across Vaynor and beyond. She spoke of truth and reconciliation, of rebuilding what had been lost to fear and corruption. She promised a return to the ideals that had once made Vaynor a jewel of the galaxy. As peace slowly returned to the palace, Jack and Alara looked out over the capital from the high balcony. The city spread out before them,